You okay, man? You need me to call somebody?
Please, do not call anybody. Not yet.
I want to start by saying that nothing about my job prepares a person for first contact. I work the graveyard shift at the Route 9 Travel Plaza, which means my nightly responsibilities are, in order of importance, keep the coffee from going bitter, keep the bathroom from becoming a crime scene, and keep truckers from falling asleep at the register mid-transaction. It is not glamorous work. My mother describes it, generously, as a job. My own assessment is closer to the last line of defense between America's interstate commerce and total chaos, which sounds impressive until you remember the chaos in question is mostly about nacho cheese pump maintenance. I found the alien behind the dumpster at the Route 9 Travel Plaza around 2 a.m., and my first thought was not extraterrestrial. My first thought was raccoon problem got worse. He was folded up between the dumpster and the propane cage, wearing what looked like a bathrobe made out of hammered tin, and he was shivering so hard the whole assembly rattled like wind chimes. I'd worked the night shift long enough to have seen worse things curled up back there. Gary from the tire shop after his divorce, a bachelor party's timeshare salesman, one memorable raccoon that had, in fact, gotten into the nacho cheese pump. So a shivering guy in a costume didn't rank high on my list of emergencies. "You okay, man?" I said. He looked up. His eyes were the wrong color, gold going to orange at the edges, and he had 2 sets of eyelids, which blinked out of sync in a way that made my stomach do a slow, polite somersault. But I'd already committed to the sentence, so I finished it. "You need me to call somebody?" "Please," he said in English, with an accent I couldn't place. "Do not call anybody." Now, look. I want to be very clear about something before this story gets away from me. I did not, at that point, clock that I was talking to an alien prince. I clocked that I was talking to a guy having a rough night, possibly on something, possibly a furry, possibly all 3, and none of those were reasons to leave a person freezing behind a dumpster. So I got him inside, sat him by the space heater, and gave him the good coffee, the stuff we keep for the manager because free stuff makes people less likely to rob you, in my experience. He drank it like it was communion wine. Then he started crying, which the tin robe did not handle gracefully. Every sob set off a little metallic shudder, like a wind chime having a breakdown, and he told me his name was Kethrian Voss, and that 6 hours ago he had been the 4th prince of something called the Ossyrian Dominion, and that he was now, as far as he understood Dominion law, dead. Exiled. He corrected himself. Which functions the same as dead, for people like me. I asked him what he did to get exiled. This is the part where I want credit for staying calm, because he told me, very simply, that his survey fleet had been assessing Earth for resource viability, his words, and that the assessment had included a live-fire demonstration on an unpopulated stretch of the Pacific to establish deterrence, and that when the demonstration went sideways and drifted toward a fishing trawler with people on it, he had given the order to abort. "That's it," I said. "You didn't blow up a boat with people on it and they fired you for it." "They did not fire me," he said. "They exiled me. For unbefitting weakness toward primitives." My father signed the order himself. I want to be honest with you, at this point I still thought I was dealing with a very committed cosplayer working through some family stuff. I gave him a granola bar. I told him he could sleep in the break room. I did not think about it again until 4 a.m., when the door chime went off and 3 more of them walked in. These ones weren't shivering. These ones had the tin robes zipped all the way up, plus what I can only describe as ceremonial rifles, the kind that look less like weapons and more like something you'd hang over a mantle, except these had little charge lights running down the barrel that pulsed like a phone about to die. They asked, in the same too smooth English, whether I had seen the Trader Prince. Now, Barrow Creek is not a big town. We've got the Travel Plaza, a Dollar General, a Baptist church, and roughly 400 people who all know each other's business better than the county does. And one thing I have learned, working nights out here, is that nothing gets 3 armed strangers thrown out of a truck stop faster than the truck stop's regulars deciding they don't like the stranger's tone. Big Terry was in for his coffee run before his shift at the grain elevator. He heard Trader Prince and primitives in the same sentence, set his coffee down, and asked them, with the specific patience of a man who has de-escalated bar fights for 20 years, whether they were here to start something. They said they were Dominion enforcement here on a matter of state, and that state business superseded whatever local customs Terry imagined he was enforcing. Big Terry said he didn't care if they were the King of England or the Dominion of whatever this is. Nobody talks about people like that in his truck stop, and if they had a problem with that, they could take it up with him personally, right there between the beef jerky rack and the lottery machine. One of the enforcers actually reached for a device on his belt at that point, which is the moment 3 separate truckers who had been quietly filling up their thermoses decided this had officially become their business too. I want to tell you, there was a dramatic reveal here, some moment where the enforcers realized who they were dealing with. There wasn't. What happened was Terry's brother-in-law Dale, different Dale, we've got two, came in for his shift at the elevator, saw the rifles, assumed it was a robbery, and called it into dispatch. Sheriff Nadine showed up 11 minutes later, which is a good response time for us, and by then half the parking lot had gathered, because in a town this size, something's happening at the Travel Plaza is appointment television. The enforcers tried to explain jurisdiction. Nadine, who has broken up 300-pound drunk semi-drivers with a look, was not interested in Dominion jurisdiction. She informed them that whatever their business was, it wasn't happening with loaded weapons on American soil, and that they had exactly one chance to set them on the ground before things got considerably worse for them personally. They laughed. That was, I think, their mistake. I won't walk through the whole thing. It involved zip ties, a tire iron, one enforcer getting tackled into the IC machine by 2 off-duty wrestling coaches who happened to be gassing up their truck, and Big Terry sitting on a 4th enforcer who arrived late to the party, all of which took about 90 seconds and ended with 3 members of an interstellar military standing in a Route 9 parking lot, disarmed, zip-tied, and being lectured by a 61-year-old woman about respecting small towns. Kethrian watched the whole thing through the break room window with the expression of a man watching his entire understanding of the universe fall over sideways. They didn't even use their weapons, he kept saying. Your civilians disarmed trained enforcement in under 2 minutes with a tire iron and a soda machine. Gary's real strong, I said. He does the tire shop. Word got up the Dominion chain fast after that. Apparently the enforcer's equipment had been transmitting the whole encounter, and somewhere up in orbit, several admirals watched their elite team get beaten by a Wednesday morning coffee crowd. Kethrian told me later that the footage got replayed at 3 separate command briefings and that the phrase, primitive but structurally cohesive social defense response, got used in a report somebody actually had to sign their name to. Nobody up there could explain why 400 strangers in a town of that size had all shown up to a parking lot fight over one man they'd known for 6 hours. Kethrian could have told them. He just didn't think they'd believe the answer was, that's just what people do here. Within a week, the Dominion had sent formal diplomatic contact, mostly to ask, very politely, if the humans could please return their equipment and their enforcers, and whether the prince could be persuaded to come home quietly. Kethrian said no. He'd taken a liking to the break room, and frankly, to Barrow Creek. Nobody here had exiled him for anything. Nobody here had even asked what a prince was doing crying behind a dumpster. They'd just given him coffee and a heater, same as they would have done for anybody. So the town did what small towns do when they get attached to somebody. They threw him a fundraiser. The county fair committee, not entirely understanding the diplomatic weight of the situation, voted him Fair King that September, mostly as a joke, mostly because he'd helped Big Terry fix a fryer, and everybody thought that was sweet. They put a cardboard crown on him at the gazebo and everything. Turns out, and I did not know this, and neither did the fair committee, Dominion law recognizes any title conferred by the sovereign will of an inhabited world's populace as legally binding, the same way our monarchs used to get crowned by cheering crowds instead of paperwork. A title given freely by the people of a planet outranks a title stripped by a single father, even a royal one. Which meant that the second that cardboard crown went on Kethrian's head in front of 400 cheering, deep-fried Oreo-eating witnesses, he stopped being an exile. He became, as far as Dominion law is concerned, a king. Crowned. Recognized. Untouchable. By Earth. At a county fair. Over funnel cake. The Dominion sent a much longer, much more careful message after that one. Kethrian still works the night shift with me sometimes, mostly because he says the quiet helps him think, and because Big Terry taught him how to work the fryer, and he's gotten weirdly good at it. He wears the crown on slow nights. Says it's the first thing anyone's ever given him for being kind instead of taking away from him for it. I still don't fully understand what I stumbled into that night behind the dumpster. What I understand is this. Somewhere out there, an entire interstellar dominion looked at a truck stop, a tire iron, and a cardboard fair crown, and decided humans were something they'd rather not test again. And me? I just gave a stranger a coffee.